Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Yolanda Melody. Today I want to talk about the dangers of feminism and how I no longer call myself a feminist because the word has now changed its meaning. Like with most things nowadays, upon looking at me, most people would put me in the category of a feminist. I never want children, like ever. I'm completely and utterly devoted to my creativity, my ambition. Marriage isn't really something that I ever really think about. I've never dreamed about my wedding day. And yet, why is it that I don't support the feminism of today? Why is that? Well, in this video, I'm going to delve deep into why, and I just want to make people aware of the pitfalls and how all of these movements that are happening at the moment are being hijacked and transformed into something that's actually more divisive and has nothing to do with unity. The first thing I want to talk about, which is probably the most obvious about modern day feminism, is that it breeds this hatred of men. Some people might disagree, but from personal experience, I can even admit that when I was in my height of aggressive feminism, I had so much anger towards a certain type of man, and when I really think about it, it was those experiences of heartbreak and being mistreated by men in the modelling industry, by ex-boyfriends, being disrespected in general, that it caused me to have this resentment towards men. I mean, I wasn't as bad as, the majority of feminists that you see nowadays, but, I made a video titled Why I Love Being Single and You Should Too. I made this video quite a few years ago, and I genuinely feel like the message that I was trying to put across didn't exactly translate the way I thought it would. But me looking back at that video now, I can tell that what drove me to do that video was literally anger from a previous toxic relationship. But it came across as if I was hating on relationships in general, but I'm not going to remove that video because the message I was trying to put across was that you should first work on yourself and your own self-development instead of putting all your focus into finding a partner just so that you can find a partner. I wasn't saying don't ever be in a relationship and be single forever, and while you're at it, sleep around, which is another thing I'm going to talk about. I was definitely not promoting promiscuity in that video. I've never, ever promoted that. But this is something that is promoted within modern day feminism. This whole idea that women should be able to sleep with whoever they want to, sleep with as many men as they like, and then simultaneously be totally cool if the guy never wants to talk to them after they sleep with them. In fact, in feminism, they take the attitude that it's actually empowering. It's empowering to sleep around. And I just want to make this clear. There is nothing empowering about promiscuity. To men or women, sex is something that is sacred. Even if you are completely atheistic, you could look at scientific studies that prove that when you sleep with someone, it does affect your psyche. You will form a bond with that person whether you like it or not. When you sleep with a person, you release oxytocin, which is why people, once they sleep with someone, they're less likely to see the red flags in a relationship. They're more likely to allow the person to treat them badly because there is a chemical reaction going on within your brain that's causing you to become attached to that person. Now, if you're doing that with random strangers and you're just seeing it as a casual thing, it's no wonder that with the rise of sexual liberation, there's also a huge rise in mental illness. So no, I probably didn't tick all the boxes for being a feminist. I never do agree with everything in any particular movement because if you know me by now, I don't really fit into any box. The next thing I want to talk about is feminism when it comes to equal rights, careers, etc. Of course, I believe that men and women obviously should have equal rights. Have I ever felt that I don't have equal rights to a man? No. All the days of women not being able to vote or work, that's in the past. That doesn't exist now. We have equal rights. So why are we still talking about it? I don't feel in the slightest bit at a disadvantage because I am female. At all. I actually think that I have an advantage most of the time because I have the power of being feminine. I actually personally feel like I would hate to be a man in this day and age. They are under so much scrutiny right now. Straight men in particular are actually becoming like some kind of scapegoat for all the problems in the world.
Are men trash?
Cis, heterosexual men, absolutely, especially white men.
Weren't you just talking about equality?
Oh, absolutely. But we have to have that viewpoint because of how much we've been attacked just by that gender.
But you just said that all straight men are trash. Like, that's a pretty big generalization, don't you think?
It definitely is. It's not necessarily something I'm gonna saying via statistics. I'm saying via experience.
And I'll talk about toxic masculinity in a second, but let me just say this, right? I was watching this interview with this woman who used to be a CIA agent. She's probably a shill. But anyway, I liked what she had to say. She had this really strong woman persona, and the woman who was interviewing her asked her this question and said, how did it feel to be a woman working in such a male-dominated field? And her answer, I absolutely loved. She said, I never thought about it that way. Just simply put, she said, I've never thought about it because the moment that you do think about it in that way, you are putting yourself at a disadvantage. If you're telling yourself that people are going to treat you differently because you're female and that you need to work 10 times harder to prove yourself, you're going in with the wrong mindset. Okay, so when it comes to toxic masculinity, I have had my fair share of experiences with misogynistic men. Don't forget, I used to be a model. I was surrounded by perverts all the time who wanted to take advantage of me any opportunity they could get. I hate that industry. Anyway, when I decided to move over from modelling and I decided that I was going to be a music artist, there was one photographer in particular who tried to make me doubt myself and tried to make me feel like, oh, well, you're so much better as a model, like, do you really want to do music? Now, bearing in mind this guy also claimed to be a musician. So looking back, it's pretty clear that he was just simply, first off, threatened, and second off, just wanted me to continue to be a pretty statue that didn't talk. And the reason why I tell that story is to give you a perspective of the fact that I do know that there is a toxic side to masculinity, just like there is the toxic feminine as well. But what our definitions are of toxic has become very, very skewed. The definition of misogyny is actually a hatred for women. So that's something to bear in mind about how definitions get changed, especially in this day and age. I mean, we used to know what the definition of a woman was, but clearly not anymore. Who knows? Your guess is as good as mine. But what's happening now with the toxic masculinity thing is that nobody knows what this actually means. It's just a buzzword that just keeps being thrown out there, and that what is happening is masculinity is being demonized. That's what's happening. I posted something on my Instagram about how we need masculinity and how it shouldn't be demonized, and that the toxic masculinity movement is making men feel like they don't know what to do anymore. Men are becoming scared of being accused of being toxic just for being themselves. And I was so shocked by how many guys responded saying, "Thank you for acknowledging this." They really do feel like they are being backed into a corner, and I'll tell you why. All of these social movements are acting as a Trojan horse so that the government can eventually have full control over their citizens. You can look at any of the things that are going on right now, and it all leads back to that point. Now, how does feminism link up with that? First off, if you divide men and women against each other, the more divisions between people you have, the easier people are to control. But second off, if you strip men of their masculinity, who's going to protect us? Now, I know that might trigger some women. You know, I lift weights myself. I'm pretty strong. I'm not saying that I'm a weak damsel in distress, but I do still recognise men's role in society as protectors. If I was to walk around with a bodyguard, I'd feel safer if it were male. There's a reason why men and women have different sports leagues, because no matter what, men will always have a clear physical advantage to women. So yes, I would like a male bodyguard, or an army of them would be better. And that doesn't mean to say that I'm weak. There are pros and cons to being male or female, and everybody has their hardships. Next thing I'm gonna say is probably gonna be very contradictory, but this is what I do. I look at both sides of everything. And while I do believe in equal rights and that women should have the choice to chase a career or stay at home and have babies or do whatever she wants to do, you cannot deny that since women have been allowed to work, it's opened up new problems. And I'm not saying that women shouldn't be allowed to work, obviously, but what I'm saying is that the government, the puppet masters, always find a way to turn something good into something bad. Back in the day, women were not expected to work. That used to be the man's role, and the woman would stay at home, look after the children, and typically the man back in the day was able to earn enough to sustain the household, the bills, buy the food, and there were a lot of women who were happy to do this, to stay at home and not work and be a housewife. Now that's not for everybody, especially not me, I wouldn't like that. But now that everybody is expected to work, guess what? The norm now is you can have a man and a woman who both work a full-time job and they're struggling to make ends meet. How did it end up like that? Now, women are expected to still work and still look after their kids. And to all the women out there who are actually able to do this, wow. I don't have any children and I feel stressed with my schedule. I literally don't feel like I have any time. Which leads me on to another thing, which I kind of wanted to do a reaction video or something, but I'll just talk about it now. There is a trend that's been circulating recently called trad wives, meaning traditional wives. There's a movement of women that are rebelling against this modern society, and they're going straight back to the basics. Some of them even dress like they're from the 1950s. It's really quite cute. And they have voluntarily decided to not work, to stay at home, look after the kids, and quote unquote serve their husband. Now, I'm not really a fan of that terminology, but when I was watching these videos, I had full appreciation for these women that are choosing to do this. Even though it's not something that I personally would want to do, I can still look at that lifestyle and have appreciation for it and think, yeah, a woman, a person, should be able to do whatever they want to do. It's their life. But let me tell you this, right? This one woman who seems to be the head of the trad wife movement received the most incomprehensible level of hate mail from feminists saying the most horrific things, like, I bet her husband beats her if she doesn't get the dinner on the table by 5 p.m. That's twisted. Whatever happened to women should be able to do what they want. Unless you do something that the feminist movement doesn't promote, then it's a problem. And last but not least, victimhood. Because feminism is linked to the woke movement, its whole ethos is about victimhood. Feminism nowadays puts you into a box where apparently you are oppressed. I must have missed the memo. I don't feel oppressed. But this is what they're teaching in universities and colleges. Oh my god. If you don't know what they're teaching in those colleges, there is nothing good that comes from a victim mentality. And I could go on forever, but yeah, these are some of the dangers of feminism. If you enjoyed my video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Love you, bye!